Hey, welcome to the I'll Be Living Life podcast. On today's show, I have two special guests joining me. One of my best buds of over 20 years, Wayner. Hey, welcome, bro.
Thanks for having me, man.
Anytime. The other special guest is Sandy, another one of my good friends. Welcome, Sandy.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So before I start with today's episode, I just want to throw out a little warning here as things may get a little heated and there may be some F-bombs dropped here and there because on today's episode, we'll be talking about growing up carrying the westernized torch with traditional values. And in doing so, we faced racism head on from both sides. But before we jump into that, Sandy wants to bring some awareness with regards to what's happening to the Indian farmers. So why don't you go ahead and educate us, Sandy?
Thanks a lot. I appreciate you allowing me a few minutes to speak about something
Yeah,
that
most
I'm really
definitely.
passionate about.
Yep.
And I will sound like a bit of a TED talk for a few minutes, but I hope you guys will be patient with me.
All good.
So essentially, what I wanted to talk about is the plight of the Indian farmer. Currently, the world's largest peaceful protest has been taking place in India for the last 3 months. And for the first 2 months, farmers and supporters have held rallies within their own states. And last month, they decided to march towards the capital city. So currently, there's upwards of 10 million farmers that have made their way from their home states to Delhi. And what they're essentially doing is they're protesting new farm bills that have been passed by the current government, sneakily passed during COVID with little to no involvement by the current opposition party, and more importantly, no involvement from the countless farmer unions. Farmers are calling for these three bills to be repealed. Essentially, these bills are not guaranteeing something called an MSP, which is a minimum support price. And essentially what that is it's a price that's set by government for crop based on the demand of product. So by removing that, farmers may not and probably will not get a fair price for their crops. These bills will make it a free-for-all, allowing corporations to move in, place pressure on farmers, and usurp land. So essentially what this is a matter of survival for farmers. Besides forcing these bills through, the government and two major stakeholders, Ambani and Adani, have tried to mute the movement by various means, assaulting protesters, including use of water cannons, batons, barricades, and other physical force.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. Mark Zuckerberg is a large stakeholder in Ambani's business and vice versa. So there has been an active effort to block or remove social media hashtags that are relevant to the protest, including blocking hashtag Sikh, which is actually my religion, but also the religion of many of the farmers from the state of Punjab. And 80% of the Indian media is owned by these same corporations. And what they're doing is they're painting farmers as anti-nationalists or terrorists in an effort to misguide the public. This is a relevant, the reason why I wanted to speak about it is because it's a relevant international topic for various reasons. Within India, the efforts of the farmers are being muted. Fundamental rights, such as the right to peacefully protest or the right of freedom of speech, is being thwarted. And the issue of food scarcity is a real and relevant issue. So I would just implore you and all the listeners today to learn about the movement. You can check out IG pages such as Kisani.co, which is KISAANI.co, or
Perfect.
Sikh Expo. They're really good resources and they keep you apprised of the situation. So essentially, I ask that you learn about it, you speak about it, and you share about it. And Albert, as a friend and a supporter, I ask you to consider inviting a guest who has more knowledge on the topic and can speak about it in greater detail to onto your podcast to educate yourself and your viewers.
Sure. No problem. Yeah, you send me his contact info, definitely.
I will, thanks.
Yeah. From what I learned about this is basically, I guess they're trying to make it a bigger corporation kind of thing and just phasing out the poor farmers, I guess, right? And basically they're going to be the ones struggling in the end of this thing. Am I?
Essentially, and I
Yeah.
think I've read recently that 80% of farmers in India are already in debt. And this will just, it's just it's a matter of survival for farmers. And another reason why it's relevant to you and me living here in Canada is because a lot of the spices that we use, a lot of the produce that we purchase comes from India. So it is really a relevant topic, and I wish people would talk about it and share about it.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, thank you for that. So we're going to talk a little bit about, all three of us. So just to give a little bit of insight about what I talked about earlier about westernized torch with the traditional values. So all three of us, as Canadian born, grew up carrying the westernized torch while holding on to these traditional values. Sandy is a Canadian born Southeast Asian, specifically from India, she told me. And then I'm half British and half Chinese, but I was raised by full Asians, like full Chinese. Wayne is actually full Chinese. So yeah, we're here to kind of give us a little story about like how we grew up and how we deal with this, honestly, this shit throughout our lives. And I'm not pinpointing one side, I'm not pinpointing the other side. We got it from both. So when we were growing up, I think we suffered a lot of this name calling, such as Chink, Chinaman, Charlie, at least for Wayne and myself. On top of that, we had to fight to protect our culture. On top of that, just believing in the westernized, being born here, we were kind of holding those Western values as well. But not only that, the people that are coming from Asia and all that, we were kind of, I guess, profiled as they called us the bananas. So they call us like the yellow on the outside and the white on the inside. So basically, that's what we were. When we said, hey, we're actually, we're Asian, and they're like, no, you're not. You're Canadian. That's it. You're not us. And then we're like, well, wait a second here. We fought our asses off. I mean, I can tell you, I fought close to 30 fights in elementary school just because of something, a racist comment or something like that. So this is kind of what we're talking about today. Wayner, dude, man, share a couple of your stories with us and we'll get into it.
Yeah, I got a few. I'm just echoing of what you're just saying about growing up in elementary school, mainly elementary from the ages of 8 to 12.
Agreed.
Old enough to, I guess at 8, they're old enough to know better, and right up to about 12, just before entering high school. Life changes a bit from high school, but
yep.
Could share from 8 to 12 being chased by older Caucasian boys, maybe a year older, having rocks thrown at me, called the Chinky Chinaman, and just almost every day after school. There's not a day goes by where you're not being harassed of some sort.
Yep.
Because of my culture. After school, I'm just thinking of this. I'm not fond of this, but after this is just kind of buried in my mind. I'm taking it with me.
This shit cut us deep.
Yeah, I mean, this is tattooed into my brain here right now.
Yep.
And I can feel my blood pressure rising as we speak. So
well, it's okay. It's just us.
Forgive me if I'm getting a little carried away.
Yeah,
but
Sandy.
After school, 3 boys being pushed around, name calling. Name calling was the easy part, really.
Yep.
That was like an easy day. Being a minority didn't help. Again, I was chased a few times coming out of a grocery store.
Yep.
And they took my candy. They took my pack of hockey cards.
Yep.
That's all I had on me. I bought a pack of Opeachy hockey cards, and they took that from me, pushed me around, pushed me to the ground, knocked my school bag down. I get up, and they're still throwing rocks at me as I'm running away. Little issues like that literally buried into my heart. Like I'm taking that everywhere I go right now. Anytime anyone wants to talk about that, that's what first story that comes up through my mind.
Yeah. I mean, we've dealt with a lot of this stuff, right? I mean, because the countless amount of times that I had to deal with it, and that's why I'm saying I can count up to close to 30 fights just in elementary school.
Oh, yeah.
And like you say, when we got to high school, it kind of quieted down because, there's definitely a lot more Asians like in high school. So everybody kind of just, shut the F up a little bit.
Correct.
So as time has gone by, it's gotten much better, I have to say. Like I said, I'm not pinpointing one side or the other, but we did get it from both sides. Yeah, sorry, man, I just interrupted you there. Go for it.
That's okay. I just think it's a little more discreet when we got into high school.
Yeah.
It wasn't so out in the open. I think that people started smartening up. They started realizing that, okay, we're a few more than just 1 or 2 per classroom now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going back to what you brought up earlier about the new immigrants. I think we made it easy for them. I think we paved the road.
We definitely did.
I don't think they were ever going to feel what we felt, Al. Like,
No,
seriously, I don't know. I really, truly hope not.
no.
You want to talk about stories of, through the battle yard here. School grounds are usually the place, like you said. There's a fight almost every week for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to. We had to defend ourselves. Some one way or another. I mean, these rather large Caucasian boys were a year or two bigger than me, so they're older than me. So it's kind of hard to fight three against one. But
Yeah.
that was one for the road for me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely something that I think Sandy and I had conversations about this too before, and we're surprisingly, it kind of shocked me too that she's kind of the similar storylines, which we'll let her talk about soon. Sandy, did you have anything to say for the time being?
No, I think the one thing that does stand out to me is because you guys are both males. So you both noted that you got into physical kind of altercations.
Yeah.
I think my experience, although similar, was more verbal. I think that was probably typical of girls growing up, girls
Yeah.
of immigrant parents growing up
I could see.
versus boys
I
growing
can
up.
see that.
Yeah, definitely. The thing about that is, Sandy, like what led to our physical altercations were the verbal assaults. And it was like, I mean, yeah, I mean, it starts off with a verbal.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's how it starts. That's
Yeah.
how it always starts.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, even to this day, most of my closest friends are all Canadian-born Asians. Like, I mean, I do have, like, a multicultural pot of friends. But, the ones that I've been hanging out with for the last 20 to 40 years are all Canadian-born Chinese. And we kind of all, I don't know, we just stuck together. But we're very westernized, so we're all really good at sports and all that stuff, too, right? So, I don't know. I think it was because we endured that and we kind of survived it together.
Right.
That's kind of why we're still friends to this day.
I would say the same for myself. I think my closest and longest running relationships or friendships are with Indo-Canadian or East Indian females that were first generation as well. And I think what you said is spot on. It's kind of the plight that we all went through, which kind of bonds us. So yeah, I can totally relate to that.
Yeah, totally. Wayner, you got
I
more?
think what you're saying, Al, was we've evolved with the times, but we still stuck it out with each other,
Mm-hmm.
and we made the best of it. We're just used to growing up with Asian friends.
Yeah.
That's how we stuck it out,
Yeah.
and we kind of looked out. We called each other brothers because we looked out for one another.
And sisters.
I mean,
And sisters, you betcha.
You're right. You're right. Thank you for that correction.
Every girl that we hung out with back in the day was considered a girlfriend from our parents. So, it's too
Or
funny.
possibly an arranged marriage, eventually arranged marriage. You want to date that girl? She's looking at you, son. Oh boy.
Yeah.
We didn't have much to say about it back then, but
No.
yeah, you're right.
So, any more to add to that, Wayne? I mean, I'm sure you got tons of stories like myself, and anything.
Well, like I said, I that was the one that mainly stuck with me
To you, yeah,
my
yeah.
whole life.
Yeah.
My brothers, I have two older brothers, 7 and 8 years older than I, and they've gone through the same situations even then. So I'd call that another generation,
Mm-hmm.
and they've had to forego all the chasing, and they were a little more meatier than I at the time, a little more buff, so they kind of fought a lot more fights through their elementary school and even through high school.
Yeah.
Again, they're 7, 8 years older than I am, so they saw a lot of that playgrounds situation.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, they had their fair share for sure.
So I'll share with you a couple of my stories here. So I had this neighbor that lives down the block from me, about seven houses or so away from my house, and every frickin' time he walked by and he saw my mom or dad out there, he'd be saying, "Hey, you chink, you Chinaman, Charlie," or making fun of something or doing something stupid. And he tore up my mom's flower garden several times, not just once. A couple of times he'd ripped the stems off and just chuck it all the way down the street, as you can see. And honestly, the impunity, time and time again, that this dickhead enjoyed as he made fun of my race pissed me right off. One day, my mom came in after school. I got in the house and my mom was crying. I was like, what's wrong? And he goes, well, I'm not going to say any names, but this kid down the street said, yeah, he called me a chinky Chinaman and did the eyes and was making little hi-ya hi-ya noises. And I was like, okay. So very next day I see him at school and I went up to him. I said, you know what? You and me, we're going like after school and I'm sick of this shit. Meet me after school. I go, you come to school and you're dead. Simple as that. And anyways, so he goes home lunchtime. I go home lunchtime. And funny enough, my phone rings right at my house, and I pick it up, and who's on the phone? Principal. So principal goes, you so-and-so? And I'm like, yeah, that's me. Goes, well, you leave that kid alone. I go, well, that kid did this. You leave that kid alone, because if you do anything, you're going to get suspended. He goes, you got that? And then I was like, I didn't say a word. And I said, yes. And I hung up, and I started... Like, Wayner knows me well. To the point, like, I get pissed off. And if I get pissed off, I get so pissed off, I start, like, it's uncontrollable almost. Like, I get so worked up that I was tearing up. I wasn't crying, but I was so pissed. I was tearing up. And my mom goes, what's wrong? And I said, nothing, Mom. Because, honestly, we were taught to swallow that shit when we were young.
Right.
And this kid... I fought this kid probably about 5 to 7 times, and he never learned. He had an older brother.
Did you win every time?
I'd say so. I'd say I did.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he had his older brother to protect him, right? And his older brother was part of the East Van gang. So I was scared shitless of his older brother. I don't know. It was a tough place. I didn't grow up with siblings. I grew up with best friends, and that was it. And we kind of stuck together. And it really irritated me that, there was nothing, like I said, the impunity that he got from this. And I just, it just angers me that he could get away with anything. And, I couldn't do anything about it. And it really pissed me off. I had a kid in school, like in grade 3, when we're sitting across from actually the classroom from each other, and he looks at me and goes, "You fucking chink," right? I'm like, what? Like, what the hell did I do, right? And I'm like, yeah. So I got up out of my seat. I went over there and I start rocking on him right in his chair. And next thing you know, like within a minute, the teacher picks me up, chucks me onto the floor, because back then you can chuck students all over the place. And picked up the other kid, chucked them across the floor, same thing, right? And then they sent us both to the office. And I told the principal up there, and he goes, "What are you donkeys doing up here?" And I was like, well, this is what he said. And then he goes, well, basically just shushed me the hell up and just said, that's it. No more fighting from both of you. So, again, he walks away with a smile on his face. This is a different kid, by the way, right? And so I'm just saying, these are all the things during elementary school. And it started from, like Wayne says, grade 3. And I think it went from grade 3 to about grade 7. And then everybody kind of just quieted down after that. I was taught at a very young age to kind of swallow this stuff. And I'm sure the both of you, same thing. I wasn't driving. My dad was driving with my mom in the front seat. I was sitting in the back. And we're stopped on 33rd and Victoria heading southbound at a red light, and this car pulls up next to us. There's 3 guys in their 20s, and they started mocking my dad, making funny looking eyes and calling him a Chinaman and Charlie and you name it. Every word came out, and I was like, Dad, aren't you going to say something, right? And then he's like, no. He goes, just quiet down for now. And I was like, okay. So these guys drive away, they laugh it off. I'm pissed off as hell in the back seat. But as a young kid, what can I do? And then my dad tells me, he goes, what do you want me to do? There's 3 guys there. I'm by myself, family first. And sometimes just let them do that stuff. So we were taught at a very young age just to swallow this kind of shit. Like I said, I'm not blaming one side or the other. Like, we got it. I went to, I was at a bubble tea place one day. And then I was talking about how proud I was about, Toisan people or the Hoi Ping people that came to Canada first. So they're the first generation Chinese that came here. And those are the ones that built the railroads. And those are the ones that paid the head tax. And how proud I was about them. And I said, my dad is from that village. And this punk ass kid from Asia was standing next to me, and he's I heard him, and I was like, "Excuse me, what's your problem here?" And then he's like, "Well, no, nothing, right?" I was like, "Let me educate you a little bit about how you have it easy here right now. Like, you came here, that you still all call us bananas, and you still don't accept us." With the traditional values that we store all through our lives and what we defended when we were younger. But here you are doing a sign, like when I'm talking about this village, I go, for your information, without those villagers coming to Canada, you would not be here to this day. You would not have the luxury of living and going through school without any issues. And honestly, like Wayne and I talk about this, my other buddies talk about it, we're indebted to these people. Both Wayne and I had the really I consider myself very lucky to have known Charlie Kwan. And Charlie Kwan is father of my friend. And he was the last surviving member of the head tax. He died at 105 years old. And what he did was paid $500 of head tax back in the early 1900s when you could buy 2 pieces of property for that. He did not get an apology until Harper finally apologized to him, and they gave him $20,000 to the surviving people, and which at that time there wasn't too many of them left. So I don't know if it was just waiting for them to die off or what it was, but he ended up getting it. And I read somewhere, and I still talk to my friend to this day, and I asked him over the weekend, like, stuff about his dad, and, you know, it's up on Georgia Strait and everything, and this guy is the kindest man I've ever met. Like, I've known him since I was 1 year of age, all the way until the day he passed, and he was always, like, I've always had so much respect for the guy. It tugs at the heart, definitely, and the day he got his apology, somebody asked him, goes and says, "Hey, so I see you beaming. I see you," and this is on the Georgia Strait. Some guy named Sichow Tan and asked him and said, "Hey, I see you beaming." And he goes, "Yeah, chink no more." So those words, those 3 words is huge. So it means a lot to me too. So I had to share that too with you guys as well. The last little bit that, like, these ones all stuck in my head, and I'm sorry I'm just being long-winded here. This stuff really like sticks in my soul, and you know, it really touched me, like, back in the day. And we grew up fighting for it, and I know I have tons of people that can vouch for it too. Anyways, I had a reunion for my elementary school back when I was 38. So funny thing is, we didn't see these guys for a long time, and we had an after party, like, you know, a couple months down the road, and I met up with a few of these people. And what did they say? It's funny because they said, "You know what? I couldn't talk to those couple of people there." And I was like, and others at that dinner said the same thing. So there was like 3 or 4 of these girls that said, "No, I couldn't talk to those 2." I was like, "Really?" I go, "Why is that?" It goes, "Because the racial remarks and the insults that came from these people back in the day cut them so deep that it still sat with them when they were 38 years old." And I felt the same way. And funny enough, I said the same thing. I was polite and cordial because I was the one organizing it. But deep down inside, I felt the same thing they did. Like I said, it for me, I felt it's from both sides, and we grew up fighting it. And I was like, man, you know, just what the hell? Like, I'm glad it's better now, but it doesn't help with recent activities from the president down in the States. But I think we get along better now. But anyways, Sandy, sorry to be so long-winded.
No, that's okay. I mean, I can totally relate to the stories you're sharing.
You were hitting it right on pinpoint. You know what? Yeah, this racism, just in this day and age, we're still fighting for rights. Forget, you know, growing up when we were small. This racism is happening till this day. Just a couple of years ago, I was heading. I was on Willingdon. I had my daughter in the back seat, my wife in the passenger. And
oh, you told me about this, yeah.
On my own lane, minding my own business, driving straight ahead. She cuts me off from an intersection she came out of. So she blew the stop sign, cuts me off, and she was driving, obviously. Her boyfriend in the passenger seat, when I pulled up next to him, I'm just like putting my hands up in the air, like, what are you doing? Nope, nothing else than just putting my hands up. And then he starts pulling the whole slant eye gesture with me.
Great.
Swears at me, calls me a chink. What the fuck? Can you guys drive? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I just looked at my wife. Is this happening right now? Is this guy for real?
It's happening, dude.
This guy's getting his ratchet girlfriend driving, cuts me off, and then he starts going off on me. So guess what? Lucky me, I pull up to the red light, put it in park, and he's about 5 cars on the opposite lane, the lane to my left, all waiting at the red light. So I just put it in park, and my wife is trying to resist me from leaving. So anyway, she couldn't get a hold of me. I was already out of my car. I was already out of my mind by that time. Walking up to him, he starts rolling up his window as I'm approaching him. I'm a 6-foot Chinaman.
Yep.
Okay, I don't care who's gonna be coming up on me. If you got to that point, like you mentioned earlier about, you gone to that point of no return.
Yep.
I didn't care. I was walking up to him, and his window starts rolling up, but he's still lipping off at me. So as he gets maybe about 3 inches before the window fully closed, I took a swing at him. I just clipped his ear, or whatever was left of his ear, rolled his window right up before my arm could have gotten caught on that window. And I was like, oh my God, you are so lucky. So what does he do? I get a green light. Nobody's honking me. At green light, cars should be moving. I'm taking my time walking back to my car. He starts lipping off again. I don't know what he was saying. I turned around at him, and you, buddy, should have came out, and let's see how tough you are now. So I'm just, again, mentioning about fighting for our rights, and I just want to say, we still have to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, you were seeing red at that moment, right? And that's something that
Point of no return.
Yeah, we don't want to teach our children this either, like obviously, right? Because the problem with Uncle Wayne and Uncle Albie here is we have a little bit of a hot fuse when it comes to this stuff, and I'm not saying that we're right either or whatever. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's the way we grew up and how we had to fight through all these challenges before, that we just don't take this shit. Like, we're not those quiet ones.
Yeah, we're sick of this shit, Al.
Yeah.
That's what it is. We're sick of this shit, and we're not taking it anymore. And now we're bigger and stronger and faster.
Exactly.
Yeah, oh my God.
Yeah. Okay, Sandy.
I need a drink.
Okay, Sandy, let's hear your stories.
Okay.
Yeah. So Al and I talk about this all the time, and I think we kind of, maybe our conversations is what brought up the idea of doing this podcast. And so I've been thinking about it a little bit, and I thought, when our parents came to Canada, at least my parents came in the 60s and 70s, there was a certain expectation for them to adhere to the Canadian culture. And they did that, and they did that well. They learned the language, they wore the clothes, they adopted the social customs. Essentially, they worked hard to become a part of the Canadian identity. But during those times, because there wasn't an open acceptance of multiculturalism and expressing your own culture publicly, our parents ensured that their cultural roots were maintained and fostered within the confines of their own homes. And that's where we come in. The first generation citizens come into play. Growing up, I personally found that I kind of had two identities. I had my public Canadian identity, and I had my private Indian identity.
That's right.
Right? And you were taught to be proud of both. But as you were growing up and facing the challenges of growing up, you also were posed with this challenge of navigating through both your cultures, and and it leaves like this long-lasting impact on who you are and who you become. And I mean, I did experience racism, but like I said earlier, it never resulted in physical violence. Some of the experiences I remember is we had some guests that were over, and they were leaving, and typically you would step outside your front lawn and you would see them off, and my dad was wearing like Indian nightwear, and this group of Caucasian teens were driving by in this beat up Datsun, and they said something to something along the lines of, "Look at that Hindu," and nobody responded. Like, we had like family, relatives, the kids were all kind of in the front lawn. Nobody responded. And like you guys had said, like, basically you were taught not to respond, to
Yeah.
a certain degree. And but the impact that that leaves on you, right, like it is long lasting. And I grew up in a fairly multicultural neighborhood. It was actually a bit of a rainbow of cultures in our neighborhood, like a really cool neighborhood to grow up in.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if I shared this with you, Al, but when we were younger, we were involved in a serious MVA, and my older sister had passed away in the car accident.
Oh no. Yeah.
And so, of course, the impact on your family is huge. But myself and my sister, my younger sister, I think we ventured out after like months after she passed away for the first time, like, out in the front yard or out in the streets, as we would always do as growing up. And I remember this one French Canadian family that lived across the street, and the daughter was actually best friends with my sister who had passed away. And the son came up to me. He was playing hockey in the streets, and he said something along the lines of, "I heard your sister passed away." And I said, "Yeah, she did." And he said, "Well, that's good. Like one less Packy in the world."
Oh my God.
Yeah, and the type of trauma that leaves on you, is I can't explain. I mean, you guys get it. It affects your confidence. You start questioning: are you less than because of the color of your skin or because of your culture? Like we all go through those challenges growing up. But I think the good thing that has come out of it, and I think you guys might agree with me, is it makes us tougher and grittier. Like
Stronger.
I stronger. Like we have the ability to overcome, when I don't know that other contemporaries might have that ability. So, in a way, it is a blessing and a curse. I think, or I feel.
It wasn't easy, that's for sure.
Right.
No, it was never easy.
No. So did you get the same kind of thing with the immigrants that were coming here? Like, did you have to deal with that kind of stuff like how Wayne and I did, or how the Canadian born Chinese were?
Yeah, there's an us versus them. I do feel that, like the new generation versus the old generation, because I think things have been handed so easily to them. So they have a lot less respect for the struggle of the pioneers or the trailblazers, where we hold that struggle in high regard. I would also suspect that they faced a lot less racism than we did. So yeah, there's really is an us versus them. They don't understand the plight, and they don't respect the plight, which
Yeah.
naturally puts them at the kind of opposition with us. So yeah, I do find that there is challenges between kind of the newer immigrants versus the older immigrants.
Yeah. It's yeah,
I
it's
think if they were going to listen to this podcast, they'll definitely respect us more, seeing
I
what
would
we
hope
went
so.
through,
yeah.
right? And let this be a lesson.
Yeah, I feel that, like I said, we got it from both sides, and no one better, no worse than the other. I think it was kind of on both ends, and we were kind of stuck in that middle ground, and I don't know, it's like you could call it purgatory if you want, but it's kind of like we're just stuck in that area where, like, we're so proud to be Canadians, we're so proud to be westernized, and we're so proud to be Asians, and we're so, we just loved both sides, and we got hit with both sides, and it's just like it was just our generation, I think. And I don't even know, like, the younger generation definitely doesn't have to deal with that, because we kind of carried that. But then now the traditional values are kind of going out the window, right? So, and it's kind of sad to see. Like, and it's just like Wayner and my dad's language is going obsolete. It's because no one's speaking it, right?
It's
because
dying.
it's dying.
It's dying or near death.
Near death, yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, and it's not like we're making we're a bit to blame for it too, because we're not teaching the children and all that stuff, right? So,
We
but
are,
then, but
yeah.
then, but then again, they're the unwillingness to learn of that as well, because there's no real need for it nowadays, right?
Yeah, I do agree. There's a real struggle in balancing both cultures. For me, I personally feel that too, because even to this day, sometimes I feel like I have my Canadian identity when I'm in public, and I have my Indian identity when I'm at home.
And it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, although I feel a lot more acceptance and a lot more interest in kind of the Indian side of me when I'm in public, I still feel like there's two distinct sides.
Yeah,
you
me
know.
too. Yeah, me too. The funny thing
I
is,
think we have the best of both worlds, though.
yeah, no, for sure.
I can strongly support that. That we might be the only generation that can say that,
Yeah, most definitely, because at least
right?
we
That
have
we
those
still had.
traditional values.
Yeah, I do
That's
agree
right.
that it's
I mean,
fleeting.
our
Each generation that comes in
yeah,
after us, the traditions are fleeting, are less and less.
Yeah.
parents were taught not to fight. I just want to get one last thing in
No,
there,
for
Al.
sure, man.
Our parents were taught not to fight back, and I have to admit that's how Chinatown started.
Oh
Just
yeah.
a word of history there,
Yep.
because we all had to support our own and
Yep.
create our own, and become merchants,
They were
business
segregated.
owners, restaurant owners. Exactly. I mean, we were literally cut in half. They had no choice.
Yep.
I don't mean we. I mean, and them. They were cut no slack whatsoever.
Yep. And they weren't allowed to
So,
purchase any property in the British properties in West Van, and
oh, totally,
yep.
totally.
Like I
So
could dig really deep.
yeah, they were taught not to fight, but I think with you and I, Al, our generation, we're all about fighting,
No, we
and I'm
stood up
teaching
for it.
that to my girls, and I have two girls, and I'm teaching them to just bitch back.
Yep.
Somebody says something to them, they're going to be fighting back. Oh my God, yeah. They're going to cut them with words again.
Yep. But we can't we shouldn't tolerate this. But yet I think we behave very maturely now, and and it should be passed down to our generations that, some of these people are so ignorant. I mean, like, here's an example. I'm probably more Caucasian than most of those people that made fun of me, and it's
Right.
like,
Go figure.
I just want you guys to think about that, because I carried my last name was from Chinese descent, and because I have two Asian parents that adopted me, I am now considered full Asian, and that's fine with me, and I'm okay with that. And I'm more than proud to say that's cool. And but realistically, my blood is half British and half Chinese, and these people were just so ignorant that I got put in there as well. I mean, I can go on with so many stories. I mean, I had stuff like all over the place, but the show is this show, and I just wanted to bring awareness to racism, and I wanted to bring awareness to racism from both sides and not just from one side. So, shame on both of you guys and shame on us, but what can I say? Like I said, we just love being Canadian. We love being westernized and born Canadians, and we also love our culture. So it's a tough place to be, but oh well. Anyways, do you two have anything to add?
No, I just want to thank you for raising awareness to this topic. It was a struggle growing up, and it was a struggle balancing both cultures. And I think these types of conversations need to happen more often, so that we're sharing our struggles, but we're also educating the younger generations
Yep.
that don't understand what we went through. And what we went through is nothing compared to what the pioneers before us went through. So I think what we need to do is always respect, where you come from, and the struggle in getting to where we all are now.
And we really want to thank the people that don't see color. That's one huge thing for me. There are some really, really good people out there, and they don't see color. And I think that's just awesome. And that's how everyone should be. We're, one planet, one race, right? So, yeah.
That's right. Amen, Al. Amen.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah. So, I want to thank the both of you for joining the show today. Very appreciated that you guys both joined me, and, we brought awareness to the Indian farmers and all that. And I'll be more than happy to talk to your contact there, Sandy, for a
Great.
future episode.
Thank you.
Okay. That's it. And, again, sorry about us getting heated and swearing a little bit and using some derogatory terms, but, it's the truth. What can I say? All right.
That's how it is.
Yeah, that's how it is. All right. Thanks. And I'll
All
talk
right.
to you guys next week.